Greetings. I'm here to discuss one of the essays we read for today. It's called Fake News Freakout. And this essay seeks to dispel a lot of myths that we have about fake news. I want to get into some of the key ideas. And one of the big ones, it talks a lot about Pizzagate. That's something we're going to be talking about as well. And I find it interesting because our next subject is going to be mental health. And here we're reading about this guy who believed that Hillary Clinton had a sex ring in this pizza shop. And this guy went into this pizza shop with a gun and tried to find the basement. And there was no basement. There was no sex ring. And so this essay does show that fake news does have an impact on us to some extent. But the overall argument is that fake news doesn't really have that big of an impact on us. I'm skipping over quite a bit of this because I really want to get into the key parts, one of which is more along, it's on page 58, where it says, in the past, false ideas did not travel far or fast, but social media allows such ideas to be adopted by many more people today. And the argument is, and this one's an interesting one, I don't know if I agree with their argument. They're basically saying that fake news has always spread quickly. Regardless of social media, regardless of the internet, it's always spread fast, and it's not moving any faster than it has been. I think a good example of this would be Orson Welles. He had this radio show, and on his radio show, he told a story called War of the Worlds, which has been made in movies. And he's doing this radio broadcast in the 1930s, and he deceives all these people. And he didn't intentionally do it. He's just telling a story, and people believed him that aliens were coming down to the sky to invade the Earth, and people were out there with guns. They were in the woods ready to fight these aliens. And people across the country believe this idea, and so he does have a point that fake news does travel fast. JFK, conspiracy theory, that was happening way before the internet. The idea that Stanley Kubrick faked the lunar landing, that's been around for a long time. That's been around before Facebook and all of these other things. And if you think about the Pony Express, how fast the Americans were able to warn each other about the British by coming in on horseback, Paul Revere, and saying the British are coming. So I think he has a good point. And I do think that rumors spread very fast. I think that's true. I just don't quite agree that they don't spread as fast. And I think with social media, they can spread so much faster than before. Before, you would have to go meet your friend and talk to your friend, maybe on the phone or something like that. And now you could just text your friend. You could interact with your friends so much faster today than ever before. And I think on a global scale, I think fake news spreads way faster because something could happen in America and people in Africa can hear about it within seconds. And so that conspiracy theory that's going on in the United States could spread to other countries. So I think on a global level, I think fake news does spread faster. I think that the mechanics of fake news, it's always traveled fast. I would agree with that. But I think that social media has had an impact on us with fake news. And his other claim, he says that people's views are easily pliable and can be altered by nothing more than reading a web page or receiving communication. And I do agree with him on some level here. I think that it's very hard to change people's minds. It's very, very hard. If you believe something, then you're gonna buy into that idea. And I think as we get older, we get more set in our ways, more set in our ideas. So if you are a Republican, and it's going to be really hard to persuade you to believe in liberal ideas. And if you're a liberal, it's going to be very hard to persuade you to believe in conservative ideas. We're already pre-wired. And so to get people to change their minds or open them to new ideas is very, very challenging. And so I do agree with him on this. But I also think that sometimes the way that fake news spreads, it looks very credible, and a lot of people don't have media savvy or media intelligence. That's not something we're taught in school. We're learning it in this class, but we're not we're not taught how to dissect arguments, look for credibility and things like that at a young age. And because of that, I think that we can be impacted on fake news. We could see something on Facebook and we might believe it. And the other thing, there's something called yellow journalism. And yellow journalism is using fear-based tactics to persuade us to believe ideas. And I would say that the media has really, really shifted today, where a lot of our news is very sensationalized. It's fabricated. It's only half true. And a lot of it is playing off our anger, our sadness, our fear. And so by doing these tactics, I think we're more perceptive to fake news today. I do. I think that. And the other thing is, usually I ask this question in class, but I mean, how many of you guys read the newspaper? Most Americans don't read the newspaper. And think about this, 20, 30 years ago, you would wake up, you'd get the newspaper in your front yard and you'd read it at the table. And most people don't read the news today. And the reason why is because we have so many media sources that are giving us the news that it's become super competitive. It's a weird metaphor, but it's like baseball cards. Go with me here. You may not get this, but bear with me. So baseball cards, a long time ago, there were only 2 or 3 brands. And so those baseball cards, they had value because there were only 2 or 3 brands. There were tops. I was a kid when I was collecting baseball cards, but there were only a few brands. And today you have hundreds and thousands of brands, so it's depreciated the value of those baseball cards. And I think because we have a surplus of news, it's kind of devalued the true news that we have. So rather than going to the real sources, the good sources that we have all these other sources around us that we read that are deceiving us, that are using yellow journalism, fear, anger to represent the news rather than getting it from more factual sources. So I hope that makes sense. And what I'm saying is because there's been a decline of good news and a plethora of terrible news, I think we are more susceptible to believing things that we're reading. Maybe not change our mind per se, but at least going there a little bit. And there's something called going down the wormhole. If you just click on that one YouTube video, you might say, I don't think I'm going to believe it. And then an hour later, you're like, yes, the earth might be flat. So I think there's many levels to this one. Let's see. I do agree with him on this. He's saying that most people actively access conspiracy theories and fake news on the web. And I would say that most people aren't on the internet and searching out fake news. It's not like you wake up and you're like, I need to find some fake news today. And he has a couple good points here. He said the New York Times is ranked 21st in the United States for website traffic. So most people are going to the New York Times. And he says InfoWars, which is a conspiracy website, and I'm being nice right now, is ranked at 318. So if we're actively seeking fake news on purpose and intentionally, then InfoWars would be number 1. New York Times would be 318. So I do agree with him. It's not like we're actively accessing fake news. The only issue is that we are so surrounded by fake news. It's on our social media feeds. It's on Twitter. It's everywhere that we may not look for it intentionally, but sometimes it arrives to us. And then, let's see. He says the internet largely serves to propagate misinformation. So that's a myth. And I'd agree with that. I would say we live in the information age. We have more access to information than any culture in history. We're very privileged and lucky. If you want to find anything, you could find it. And I would say that most sources on the internet are reliable. A lot of them are reliable. I'm an English teacher. I'm really trying to make this argument. Part of me disagrees too, because I think there's a lot of bad information on it. But I would say if you want to find good information on the internet, it might take you a while, but you could find it. It's going to be there. So it's not like it's not there. Sometimes it's challenging or hard to find depending on what you're looking for, but it's not like it's subliminal. It's not like it's not there. Sometimes it just takes work. And I would say the internet, for the most part, I would say the internet's really made to entertain right now. But I also think that we do have a lot of access to knowledge. We have a lot of access to good information, and I think the internet provides that. So I'm 50-50 with a lot of these ideas, but anyway, that's a summary of this essay, and I think it's important to start thinking about fake news. What is fake news? How does fake news affect us? And I think this essay does a good job of that.